Our other story this morning is the weather. I don't know. Cloudy, cold, dreary. Should we be getting used to this? Sort of am at 9:02. Chris Mulcahy's here. And we hung out Saturday. It was cold and cloudy, but it wasn't windy. It wasn't rainy. So that was a little bit of a break.
Yeah, the moisture definitely doesn't help. And today, a lot of it's barely coming down, but we did have a report of some sleet in Concord. And there's also indications that we could even have a few more snowflakes that mix in even as far south as Charlotte. Nothing major, just more of like, ooh, look at those snowflakes. But here is... wow, look at those snowflakes. This is actually a postcard-like photo. This is a new camera I was able to import. This is Lees McRae College in Banner Elk. And this is actually gorgeous. Fresh snow on the rooftops, and no measurements have come in so far, but just doing kind of like an eyeball look. I think that you're dealing with at least a half inch of snow that's fallen. I think some areas even closing in on an inch so far. Jeb, you actually have the blowing rock camera, so I'll just have you switch that over because you can see the fresh tire tracks that you're looking over there on our weather impact alert overall. And right now it's a big difference for you have the Charlotte area, really nothing at all. WCNC camera just dealing with a cloudier sky. I put this together. This is our different quad box of all the different cameras that we have across the mountains. If it would load on me, there it is. Boone is a disaster right now. I don't know what happened there, but it looks like that dropped off.
It doesn't look like Boone.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Boone. It kind of looks like a crossword gone wrong. But that camera will likely come back. But actually, I really wanted to show you the Boone camera because it shows the best example of what a treated road looks like compared to what we're seeing around Blowing Rock. Blowing Rock, we're seeing a lot of those tire tracks here and there because you haven't seen those active salt trucks and the plows go through. So it really is a power of some of that salt and brine that's dealing with a lot of areas. Meanwhile, skiers and snowboarders can rejoice for some fresh pow around Sugar Mountain and Beach Mountain. And we'll continue to see some decent snowfall. I would really say for the rest of this morning heading into the afternoon. It's really just north of I-40 and the mountains that are going to be dealing with precipitation for most of the day. Our weather alerts are a winter weather advisory that goes until 1 o'clock, but that is only temporary because a secondary hazard is actually going to develop behind that, and that is going to be some black ice. So we're also weather alert for this morning, weather alert for tomorrow morning as well, because any of that precipitation that we have is going to freeze over because our lows are going to start to hit that freeze zone in the mid to the upper 20s, but also the drip zone. So whenever you have temperatures that are 28 degrees or colder for 4 hours or more, that's when you need to drip. This is one of the biggest questions that people ask me, especially if you have an older house where the pipes aren't as protected in the crawl space. Some of the newer homes, better insulation there, so you don't have as much to worry about it. But my house from 1987, I am constantly dripping throughout the winter season. So it's only about 5 drips needed, so it takes a lot of finesse to get that perfect kind of drip ratio, but it doesn't need to be dripping every second right there because that's wasting water. So it doesn't really have to move too much. The main premise here is you just need some movement in the pipes because stagnant water has a better chance of freezing. Now, 28 degrees, you need this to last a lot longer for it to be really a big problem. But likely, if you're not actually allowing for this drip, sometimes your faucet might sputter. That is kind of an example that, oh, wow, I was actually close to a freeze. Well, I'm letting you know for the long term, there's a much better chance for this. But typically, insulated pipes, even when it's below 20 degrees, can freeze within 6 hours. This range of temperatures can freeze in a 12-plus hour period. But we're not luckily going to have that. I have a general range pretty much from about 3 to 9 tomorrow that we're going to be around the upper 20s from 27 to 29 degrees. So definitely in that freeze zone. So I always like to let you know once that comes about. That's actually going to move me forward for our lows because it's not really, I'll show you our futurecast coming up here, but realistically the Charlotte area in the next couple hours, we're going to get rid of this precip. We could see a little burst of wintry mix. It's just cold and miserable this morning. It doesn't really warm up too much. But our lows drop down to 27 degrees tomorrow, which would match the coldest morning that we've had so far this season or actually beat it by a degree. But I want to show you that it doesn't get better. Oftentimes it's like, okay, well, it has to start getting warmer, right? No, we set the bar low and we're going to bring it lower. 19 degrees could be our first teen temperature on Monday, and that means maybe even a chance for the first single digits for the mountains. That means at least 4 straight mornings that will be below freezing, and where we've been over the last 10 days is nowhere near where we should be. Now, we got spoiled during November, and all of a sudden we ended the month astronomically low, because look at the bottom line. That is hovering around that January criteria that we usually average about 52 degrees. Well, it was November 27th that we were 55. Since then, we have been 50 degrees or colder for 10 straight days. And today is going to be day 11, because I only have a high of 40 degrees today. That's right, only 40 degrees. So it's going to be astronomically chilly. So check it out. High of 40 degrees right around the Charlotte area, about 34 in Boone, so barely getting above that freezing point, and then 42 degrees down in Lancaster. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I sadly don't really have like a big warm up after that. Okay, so let's get to the now, and then we'll move our futurecast forward, and then we'll look at the long range for some of our highs as well. Here's a look at the active radar, 38 degrees. So right now that is in the rain zone, but what we've been looking at recently is some of these, wrong way. You can see a little spot right here. That is representing that, okay, maybe you could mix in some wet snowflakes here and there. Last time that we saw this was around Concord. That's where we had that sleet mixture. So I just want people to know that this is kind of the golden hour. I think it's really during this hour into the 10 o'clock hour that if we are going to see snow, again, this is just plain old seeing snow briefly, and then it turns back to rain or we're done. But this is going to be the next couple of hours that we could see some flurries. And then once you get to, I would say, more of the late morning heading into the early afternoon hours, that's when we're pretty much going to be done and drier air starts to work in. Meanwhile, that snow is going to last a little bit longer. So going to our futurecast, that's going to show hour by hour forecast that starts to really taper off heading towards the hour of noon. I've stalled as much as I can because nothing's loading right now. So
I don't know, this is good though. It gives me an idea of
so that what's going to do is by about noon, I think most of the precip is going to be pretty much out of our hair, and then it's still going to be hovering around the I-40 corridor, and then we're going to still see some heavy snow, mainly up in the high country. So here, let me reset this real quick. All right, so here you have about noon. Most of the precip, I think, is going to be really north of the I-40 corridor, and then at that point you're seeing more of a rain-snow mix that's associated with it. By about 6 o'clock, we're just dealing with some snow flurries that are left over in the mountains, and then by the late evening, everything's past and gone. We clear out the clouds, still dealing with a mix of cloud and sunshine for your Tuesday, and then eventually we will see really a lot more sunshine coming out for your Wednesday. And then here's your 7-day forecast brought to you by the Jerry Hunt Super Center. It's not great. What you're dealing with is you're up to 53 degrees, which the average is 56. That's pretty close to where we should be. Once you get to the end of the month, we're averaging about 53 anyways. And the big concern is I already showed you where our lows are going to go. I have 49 on Friday, highs back in the lower 40s, at least with some sunshine on Sunday. This also shows that pretty much outside of the rain that we have this morning and then the ice that we could have, or black ice on Tuesday, everything else is pretty much just cold. Nothing, no real big hazards to associate with this. There's always lingering a couple days after a snow event for the mountains that they could have lingering ice, especially with those colder temperatures. But this just really shows that we could even have highs in the 30s come next Monday. So next Monday might not be as mean and rotten, but it could be actually pretty cold in general. Where I was showing you that 10-day outlook, what was interesting looking back at Charlotte history, this is the 91st time we've had 10 days or more that have been 50 degrees or below. But there's only been 2 times in history that streak started in November. So it just shows how early that is. That it's happened 91 times across like 147 years of record keeping, but only twice it's happened this early. So it just really shows how cold it has been to end November and begin December. And if we keep up this rate, this will actually go down as one of the coldest Decembers we've ever had.
That's crazy. We've had one of the warmest Octobers. It was so nice. And then November sort of making up for lost time there. Yeah. Now we're going to go into one of the coldest Decembers.
Yeah, and I mentioned this word last week, equilibrium. Atmosphere loves to balance itself out. And sometimes when you go up to the extreme high, it goes down to the low. But what's happening with the jet stream is everything is primarily just filtering down the south. And you actually see it here for our 6 to 10 day outlook. Check this out. Looking at the United States, you see that big bubble of warm towards the west. Well, they are on the warmer side, like when we were in November. Meanwhile, if I showed you this map when we were at our big warm spell, you reverse this. They had the blues and we had all the oranges. So now what you're actually seeing is more of a downfall from the jet stream because everything is coming from the northwest. So this is the big term that the media loves to get a hold of, including us, is polar vortex. Polar vortex is always there, but what happens is during the wintertime, whenever you have big fluctuations, it causes it to wobble like a top. So that allows for pieces of it to dive further south, and that's exactly what's happening. Since it's so extreme warm to the west, to balance itself out, it's diving that colder air down to the south. We just are dealing with it for a much longer period of time than we're used to.
All right. Very good. Well, I guess we'll just grin and bear it as we always do.
Yep. Do you know what? Just pretend it's January.
Yeah.
Just focus in on the pretty lights and you'll be okay.
All right. That sounds good. Good way. Monday motivation.
Exactly.
All right. Chris Mulcahy
Namaste.
here in the Live Impact Studio. Namaste to you. We'll take a namaste break here on Live Impact News on WCNC+.